All right, here's the story from Timcast.com. Russia deploys sub armed with weapon of the apocalypse. The Poseidon torpedo could destroy European cities by creating a tsunami wave the size of 4.5 football fields. Wow. The sub, named Belgorod, is that how you pronounce it, has disappeared from its harbor in the Arctic, promoting NATO to warn member countries that Russia may be planning to test its Poseidon torpedo, which is an intercontinental nuclear-armed, nuclear-powered autonomous weapon.
I think that should be prompting NATO to warn member countries. Yeah. Copy editor.
Oh, yeah, I see. There's a P. It's supposed to be prompting. So some people have said it's a 100 megaton torpedo. The more reasonable estimates is 2 megatons, which is still nightmarish. Apparently, this autonomous drone torpedo is nuclear powered. It's got its own small reactor, which means it has an infinite range. Not literally infinite, but that it could hit anything on the planet. It could go and just hit it. So he's deployed this sub. They're saying he's going to test it, and they're not convinced that the weapon is actually can be used just now.
That's not coming from me.
Not me either. Sound. No, nothing's popping up.
Someone keeps making a noise.
Coming from the mainframe.
No, it's coming from the main computer. Not
main computer. We don't have speakers on the computer.
Well,
yeah, we don't.
Somewhere.
Maybe it's this Bluetooth
I've never
thing.
heard that noise before.
It's coming from Luke's face.
No, I'm just coming from Luke's face. All right. So anyway, back to nuclear annihilation.
Have you thought about that?
That's right. It could be here.
It could be the submarine.
Ian maybe brought
Ding.
So this theoretically could hit anywhere on the planet. Now I don't know if this is the big concern because it's not been tested, and I guess the estimate here is they say it's not going to be operational until 2027. I suppose if they have it and it's like partially functional, why not test it if they need to? You know what I mean? Like,
well, now's not a good time to test a weapon because it'll look like they're preparing to launch. I think geopolitically, the mediocre intelligent people will be like, oh no, that means they're getting prepared to use it.
Well, this is why,
which I guess they technically are.
This is why the U.S. like canceled a few, what was it, like Titan missile tests? But what I mean is, if they haven't tested it yet, why does that matter? If they have it and it might or might not work, they will use it if they need to. And we can flip a coin and wonder which city is going to get wiped out in a radioactive tsunami, or we can just be like, hey, maybe we should stop the war.
Also, how many of these do they have? How many autonomous weapons are available? Like, this is the future of modern war, at least the present day modern war is autonomous nuclear weapons that can take out cities from a distance.
Well, we need to be, honest with ourselves. We don't know exactly what they have. A lot of the times, military technology is far behind what the general public believes is even out there. But for the record, Russia has 6,255 nuclear warheads. That's the recorded amount that, of course, everyone publicly talks about. But again, what we're talking about here is a new form of weaponry that is going to, of course, launch a nuclear weapon underwater and launch a tsunami with radioactive waste onto a shoreline. This is what they're talking about. I don't know how you test these certain types of weapon, but it's not just the submarine that we should be worrying about. Israeli intelligence is also documenting how Russian bombers capable of a nuclear attack were just found near Finland. There's, of course, the nuclear train that people are talking about. So it definitely does seem like Russia is allowing a lot of its nuclear assets to be deployed, whether tested or not. We don't know exactly what's going on here. But regardless, I think this is news that I think we should be paying more attention to.
Here's what people need to understand, too. I'd be willing to bet the first target of any kind of nuclear strike, it's going to be tactical nukes. It's going to be nuclear artillery. So Russia will fire at a military target, probably a shot across the bow, meaning it'll hit nothing. And then it'll be devastating. And that's them being like, we're doing it. Then if the war continues, they'll use nuclear artillery against military targets. Then they'll probably use lower yield nuclear weapons against smaller cities. It'll draw up. But if it really gets to full scale nuclear war, then you don't need to worry about New York, DC, LA, or Chicago. You need to worry about small towns. They're not going. I would imagine Russia is not going to target, if they're going for a shock and awe kind of nuclear strike against a U.S. city, which I don't think is very likely at all. It's going to be a small city. What's a good example? Name a small city. Can you think of one? Dubuque.
Love you guys.
That's a good point. It's a good city, actually.
Dubuque, Iowa.
Yeah. That actually. I don't know their population. It's probably a couple 100,000 maybe. But this is exactly what I mean. If the people who live in small towns think, it's New York, it's DC, I ain't got anything to worry about. If they want to cause shock and awe damage and really paralyze the economy and the American people, going after a big city just confirms that they feel safe. We're not in the big city. We don't got anything to worry about. It would be bad. It would be scary, but we're in the middle of nowhere. They go after Dubuque, everyone, everywhere in the country is going to be worried.
That's what freaks me out. Like, I don't know if 9/11, I don't know who did it. I still don't. But I am not putting it past the government to nuke one of its small towns or cities and blame it on the Russians. Like, that's been on my mind lately, is like a full scale 200,000 people are just evaporated or obliterated. And then everyone's in such pain and trauma that whoever they point you towards, you end up being like, I'm so angry. Okay, they're the enemy. Okay, I need an enemy right now.
Yep.
And that's just, be on guard for that kind of crap.
Right. So it's like Chernobyl melts down, and they're picking that radiation in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So that's 1,000 miles. And so if you nuked Dubuque, well, what's within 1,000 miles of Dubuque? And you have so many cities. Des Moines, Chicago, like you have so many cities that could also be affected by the Dubuque nuke, if that's what we're going to call it.
It's all going to blow east, I think.
Dubuque.
It's a very Russian way to say it.
Dubuque nuke.
They like DB and all together, you know.
Yeah, so we have this other story. Luke just mentioned it, that the Russian nuclear military train is seen on the move in possible warning to the West that Putin is prepared to escalate his Ukraine war. The military hardware belongs to the 12th Main Directorate of the Russian MOD. Specialist division is dedicated to storage, maintenance, and provision of nukes. I was saying this earlier. Everybody right now is talking about nuclear weapons, but these things are like, 80 years old? Not like every nuke is 80 years old, but the technology. You have to imagine they've developed different weapons by now, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean,
bioweapons?
80 years? 80 years, what we've seen in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And those attacked major cities that were key infrastructure for, of course, the Japanese military. They had a lot of factories there. They had a lot of production there. What's Russia going to do? Bomb China for producing all the infrastructure for the United States? It does. So there's a lot of complexities to our modern day. And there's also talk of low-yield nuclear weapons that don't have any radioactivity, that just provide kind of a big boom there. What we're talking about right now is just crazy stuff that is even preposterous that we're at this level where we are at right now. This is crazy.
I want to go back to World War II and just imagine what they were thinking before the deployment of nuclear bombs, right? They had the V2 rockets. They had, they had Zeppelins dropping stuff or something like that.
Well, they were using B2 or B-52s to drop, I think a B-52, drop firebomb. They firebombed Dresden before the nukes went off.
So that right there was already kind of like a dramatic escalation. Imagine if they, in World War II, were concerned about the most powerful and devastating weapon of like 1860. Like we're talking about 80 years ago, we developed these fission bombs, these nuclear bombs. And then, of course, since then, we've dramatically increased their power by like 1,000-fold and put them on ICBMs. Now we have this torpedo. I'm willing to bet, I'm just going to say it, off the top of my head, antimatter weapons probably exist in great yield.
You don't know what's coming. This is the point of modern war, is you don't know. A big point of it. You watch The Great War on YouTube. Fantastic channel. Documents World War I week by week. They didn't know what machine guns were. Not really. They didn't know that they were running into a machine gun for like weeks and weeks and even maybe months. They just got up and just kept running and just kept getting killed. Millions of people who just keep running into this new weapon that they didn't understand. And then in World War II, they didn't think a nuclear bomb was going to take out Hiroshima. They didn't know that existed, that potential was there. But lo and behold, in a split second, things can change.
So this is a story that broke last Friday. The first transgender officer in the U.S. Army, right, arrested being a Russian spy, traitor to our country. Now, this is what I found very, very interesting in the story. What were the Russians after? So what were presumably they wanting? What were they wanting? What information?
Medical data.
Health records.
Right, that's right. Well, they weren't going after Delta Force's like capacity of firepower or what special weapons they had or night vision goggles. They were going after the medical records. Now, what does this mean? Gordon Chang says that China is working on biomedical DNA attracted, devastate. I'm not sure how you would even call it. Like, what would you even call it? DNA markers that say like we're going to make a specific death for you based on your genetic code. And China's going full in on this technology to figure out how to kill whole groups of people.
Of course.
And this, of course, is the James Bond.
So that's because
last plot to the last James Bond movie.
You
right?
don't want them to know that you're attacking them. That's the point. They want to do it invisibly, quietly, subtly. You don't want to drop weapons that you see coming.
You guys know about Stuxnet? This was a cyber weapon developed by the U.S. and Israel to blow up Iranian nuclear centrifuges to stop them from, obviously, getting nuclear power or weapons or whatever you want to call it. So this was a cyber weapon that was basically just spattered across the planet. They infected everything and said sooner or later it will find its way onto their computers. And it did. It did nothing until it found the centrifuges. And then it caused them to spin until they exploded. But this virus was apparently on regular machines and industrial machines, but it wouldn't do anything. That's exactly it. I wonder if back then someone saw that and said, we can do that on a computer. Can we do that on a person? Yeah. You create a virus that will infect, a bioweapon that will infect every person on the planet, but only cause damage in certain DNA. Yeah. What movie was it? James Bond?
James Bond. This was the exact plot of the last James Bond film. And we know that the Central Intelligence Agency has a bureau in Hollywood that they openly push the new horrors to humanity through Hollywood cinema. And that they are probably concerned about this because this is what was happening. This exact thing was happening in James Bond film. There's a black character, female character, right? People thought she might have been the new James Bond, right? 007 takes time off and she becomes 007. Anyway, at the end of the film, the mad scientist is like, I could make a disease. They're in there, his lair, and he goes, I could wipe out your entire race, right? That was his threat to her, is that I could wipe out your entire people based on the genetic code.
But hold on.
Right?
Who would this most negatively impact? Not the United States.
China?
I don't know.
China is more ethnically homogenous.
Yeah, homogenous.
But it doesn't have to be about your ethnic genetics. It could be about a trigger. So like an external stimuli, a light or a sound could trigger your genetic to do the thing to activate it. It could be something you eat. It could be an emotion you have could trigger it.
That's
some kind of chemical release in your brain activates it or something like that.
Yeah. So they did a mass murder of a group at the beginning of the movie. And I mean, obviously, it's not a documentary, okay? Like, it's a James Bond film. But they killed a specific targeted group of people because they all took a tablet, right? They took a pill that you could give the military, let's say. Everyone in the military, they all take, like, very similar medicines, obviously vaccine mandates, so on and so forth. And so you could target them based on the medicine that they take.
There was some show that I was watching. What was it? Fringe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Fringe had an episode like
Great
this,
show.
right? Where this guy is developing this kind of smell that if you smell it, it kills you. Did you guys know this? He was trying to target a specific
Been a
person
long
through their
time.
genetics, something like that. Something like that. I don't know. It's been, I haven't seen it in a while. Yo, this is crazy because it feels like we all do these shows and we're like nuclear weapons, and then the TV's like nuclear weapons and Putin, and everyone's like, oh, and then meanwhile behind the scenes and all the top secret clearance stuff, they're like, if only you knew.
Dude,
Yes.
bioweapons are no joke.
Well, China was caught taking people's COVID tests and then genetically harvesting the DNA from it. U.S. intelligence agencies were specifically, I was talking about this, I think a year ago on this show. I was saying, hey, the Chinese government is stealing everyone's COVID tests. U.S. intelligence agencies are warning medical facilities not to get rid of their tests in a way where, of course, the Chinese government could get them. They have been getting them. They have been harvesting the data for multiple reasons. One is an economic reason. Another reason could be, of course, a new form of warfare, germ warfare, DNA-specific warfare that I think is also on the possibility. But the more likely possibility that, of course, people need to understand here is that China also wants to game the big pharma market. So if they have everyone's DNA, they know what people would be getting sick of. They could start producing and manufacturing medicine to beat out big pharma and become the next big overruling kind of power.
So for all of the people that may be listening and they're going, no, that's crazy. China's not taking your DNA. I give you NPR.
Dun, dun, dun.
China wants your data and may already have it. February 24th, 2021, from All Things Considered. They say,
Exciting.
as COVID cases began to rise a year ago, a Chinese company contacted several U.S. states and offered to set up testing labs. As a byproduct, the Chinese firm Beijing Genomics Institute would likely gain access to the DNA of those tested. The offer was tempting for states struggling to set their own testing facilities for a new virus on short notice, but U.S. national security officials urged the states to reject the offer, citing concerns about how China might use personal data collected on Americans. We certainly reached out to our partners in the community to make sure, blah, 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 blah. This is just one of the earlier stories.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder why the COVID tests were free, and given out to everyone.
No. Hold on, though. Those you didn't return. Right? So what this is more about is facilities where you'd pull up and they'd test you and then we'll call you back later.
Exactly.
The COVID test you got at home, you like snorted into or whatever, and then you threw it in the trash.
You had to
and
buy
you're done.
those, right?
Right.
But the free
these-
ones, they had your DNA sample.
No. The ones they give you at your house, they were the same ones from the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
This is what they're talking about is there were places you could go to get tested where you'd drive up in your car, they'd stick you in the nose and say, we'll call you back on Wednesday and let you know. That's where the concern is on whether or not they were getting access to your DNA.
I mean, to Luke's point, how much of our pharmaceuticals is processed in China?
A lot, majority.
I mean, the vast majority. I don't know the exact number. I'm sure it's easily you easily find it. I can Google it right now.
Yeah,
but
vitamin
I think
C, supplements, all of it, antibiotics.
considerable
I just wanna make
majority
sure.
of American pharmaceuticals
They go on.
manufactured in China.
I just want to make sure I clarify too. As much as they go on to say that these states turned it down. This is funny. They were like, the national security said, don't do it because, China would get access to your data. We certainly reached out to our partners in the community to make sure. Oh, it sounds like it didn't happen. NPR goes on to say, Beijing Genomics Institute, a major global player in the world of genomics research, reported set up labs in at least 18 other countries and provided COVID testing kits to 180 nations, including the U.S.
Great.
U.S. officials stressed their main concern was preventing the establishment of full-service labs. The officials do not consider the testing kits to pose a serious risk. Biotech companies in China, the U.S., and elsewhere routinely collect DNA and use it, blah, blah, blah. You get it. So here's the other crazy thing, too, is like Ancestry and like, was it 23andMe?
I'm just looking it up.
People are just like, I'm going to give my DNA.
And then a company buys 23andMe. Who owns it? I don't know. Do you know the guy that owns 23andMe personally?
And
I'm
asking you. I believe also the FDA made an announcement that they were taking some of the tests and running larger projects and scientific experiments with them based off human DNA.
Okay, now, I know it sounds freaky, right? But hear me out. What if the genomics lab that has everybody's DNA releases a virus and it turns people into crazy like animal hybrids like werewolves and lizard people? Wouldn't that be cool?
Reality is a lot scarier than your fiction here, Tim, especially when you look at individuals.
Animorphs.
Animorphs.
We were just talking about animorphs.
Right. What animal would what animal would you become if you were an animorph?
Well, I'm not saying that people get the ability to choose a turn. I'm saying like they would be forcefully turned into a variety of different animals. Like Luke would be like a lemur guy and would be a horse dude or something.
Oh, all
like
right.
BoJack Horseman.
Can we stop talking about? Can we stop talking about animorphs and can we start talking about the billionaires?
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.